My friends, we have another conspiracy theory which is proving to be true once again, just as so many of these conspiracy theories continue to prove to be time and time again. And today we have to talk about Rotten Tomatoes because this is something that I have talked about here on the channel for years now at this point. Almost 5 years, okay? This is a thing that has been going on for a while now. Ever since Captain Marvel came out, people started to have their eyes open up to the reality of what is Rotten Tomatoes and this entire fraudulently ridiculous complete scam of a website. Okay, so we have a lot of crazy stuff to get into with this whole story, so let's go ahead and just jump right into it. A PR firm has been manipulating the Rotten Tomatoes movie scores for over 5 years by paying critics directly. A new article by Vulture suggests that PR companies paid critics for a positive review on Rotten Tomatoes, despite the site's policy for prohibiting reviewing based on a financial incentive, okay? Holy crap. Guys, once again, we were right. You and me, we were right once again. And all the people out there that have called us crazy conspiracy theorists about this for years now at this point, among many other conspiracy theories out there, they are proven wrong once again. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of what is going on here. So the system is broken. Audiences are dumber. Normal people don't go through reviews like they used to. Rotten Tomatoes is something the studios can game, so they do, said Paul Schrader. And Paul Schrader, as much as I don't agree with a lot of the nonsense that he says, for the most part, he continues to prove to be fairly reputable. We are seeing the truth coming out in real time. So the PR firm is Bunker 15, and they paid $50 or more for a review. Imagine just, having to stoop down to this level for $50. They often recruit obscure critics who are part of the pool tracked by Rotten Tomatoes. These payments are not typically disclosed, and Rotten Tomatoes says it prohibits reviewing based on a financial incentive. One film, Ophelia, starring Daisy Ridley, went from 46% to 62%. And how often have we seen this play out over the years, where we've seen films that have either been just massively positive in a way where it doesn't make any sense because pretty much the entire internet is talking negatively about the film, yet somehow magically when the film comes out it has a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. We saw that happen with films like The Woman King and so many other films. And all of this kind of started with Captain Marvel when it got review bombed by trolls on Rotten Tomatoes. As you can see, it's 45% rotten from audiences. And so we see this happening with things like The Woman King, where for verified audiences, film sits at 99%. This film is basically like a perfect film in the eyes of verified audiences. But then when you look at all audiences, at 80%. And we see some of the same type of stuff happening with critics versus top critics versus all critics as well. Rotten Tomatoes has delisted a number of Bunker 15 movies from its website and sent a warning to writers who review them. We take the integrity of our scores seriously and do not tolerate any attempts to manipulate them. We have a dedicated team who monitors our platforms regularly and thoroughly investigates and resolves any suspicious activity. The thing that I want to focus on here is the fact that we know that the system of Rotten Tomatoes is manipulated by people who are basically being disingenuous. We know that there are people out there who will manipulate these scores. We see it happening with films like The Woman King, where if you go to the verified audience, there are so many of these different reviews for this film that basically look the same. So many of them have the same type of wording. I made a whole video about this when this all happened, but if you just look at them, they all sound the same. How many of these are bots? But either way, this whole thing continues to show that I think a lot of these big studios are definitely manipulating this type of stuff. Now, of course, we've been calling out Rotten Tomatoes for a lot of this nonsense for years now at this point, but even in the comments here, you can see so many people are roasting Rotten Tomatoes for this, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, Rotten Tomatoes, along with obviously like IMDb, Metacritic, and so many of these different sites, they're all sites that we have to rely on when it comes to a certain metric of the reception that different films have. Unfortunately, it's some of the only metrics that we have, at least when it comes to what audiences are thinking and critics and all of that type of stuff. It's a very, very flawed system, and it's a system that is very corrupt in my opinion. But that's why it is so important to look at the inconsistencies of what Rotten Tomatoes is doing compared to things like IMDb and Metacritic, which are very inconsistent when it comes to those two latter that I just mentioned to Rotten Tomatoes. They're very inconsistent with each other many, many times. It's interesting that they're okay with review bombing when it works out for them in their favor. When the review bombing is positive towards their films, But when it's negative, then they suddenly have a problem with it. So it's very interesting how they're willing to cherry pick when it comes to that type of stuff. And so we know that Rotten Tomatoes has been corrupt for a while now. We know that it is a flawed system, that it has a lot of problems. And this right here, this whole story right here, completely proves that we were right this entire time. So with that being said, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all in another video very soon.